You know, usually when we think about empires falling, we picture this slow, inevitable crumbling, like a sandcastle when the tide comes in.
Right, yeah, just piece by piece,
Exactly. You lose a province here, maybe there's an economic collapse there, and over centuries, the whole thing just washes away into the ocean of history.
which is how most historical models work.
Yeah. But today, we are throwing that sandcastle model completely out the window. I know you've been examining how massive organizational systems fail, whether you're looking at corporate structures or historical governments or just massive logistical
Oh,
networks.
absolutely. It's a fascinating area to analyze.
So today we pulled a stack of lore that models the ultimate systemic collapse. We are opening a file called The Shattered Mirror, a Galaxy in Fracture. And we are looking at a fictional universe that spent literally 10,000 years locked in a state of stagnant, rotting decay.
What's fascinating here is that most fictional settings, especially these massive, sprawling ones, they rely on a stable status quo to tell their stories.
Right. You need a foundation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You build a sandbox, you establish the physical laws of that universe,
Right.
and you leave the borders of that sandbox alone so the characters could just, play inside it.
Which makes sense. You don't want the rules changing every 5 minutes.
Right. But the source material we are analyzing today examines what happens when a universe's fundamental rules are suddenly violently thrown out the window. It shifts an entire lore ecosystem into a modern era defined by one terrifying word, which is fracture.
Okay, let's unpack this because our mission for you today is to analyze the exact terrifying moment that 10 millennium status quo violently broke apart.
And it really is a violent break.
Oh, yeah. We aren't just looking at a military defeat here. We are exploring the mechanics of how a universe physically and psychologically shatters. But to really grasp the scale of that fracture, we have to start with the ice age that preceded it.
The baseline, right?
Right. The notes refer to this baseline as the age of the Imperium. 10,000 years. Just wrap your head around that timeline for a second.
It's almost impossible to conceptualize.
It really is. I mean, in our real-world human history, 10,000 years ago, we were barely figuring out agriculture. But in this setting, for that entire stretch of time, the status quo was it was stuck.
Yeah, it was a civilization essentially holding its breath. The text specifically calls it a stagnant, decaying stalemate.
A decaying stalemate. That's a great phrase.
It perfectly captures it. The Imperium of Man was a single, unified entity spanning 1,000,000 worlds. But it was highly dysfunctional.
So it was big but broken.
Extremely broken. It was surviving, but it certainly wasn't advancing. There was no innovation, no scientific enlightenment, just this rigid, dogmatic survival.
Wait, Scott, let me get this straight. You're telling me an empire survived 10,000 years of active decay?
That's what the lore establishes, yes.
Because that breaks every rule of history. I mean, Rome barely made it a few centuries before structural rot brought it down. How does a government structurally enforce a 10,000-year stalemate across 1,000,000 planets?
Right, the logistics alone seem impossible.
Exactly. It feels like the supply chain issues alone would tear it apart in a few generations.
Well, that is the defining paradox of this universe. To understand how they maintain that stalemate, you have to look at the mechanism holding it all together, which is the Emperor.
Okay, so who is this emperor?
Well, in this lore, the Emperor isn't some politician sitting in a boardroom. He is a rotting psychic corpse.
Wait, a corpse?
Yes, interred within a massive, arcane life support machine called the Golden Throne.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he has been sitting there, suspended between life and death, for 10 millennia.
So the head of state is literally a corpse on life support. That paints quite a picture.
It does. But he is not just a symbol. The Emperor's immense psychic presence acts as a galactic lighthouse. It's something called the Astronomicon.
A psychic lighthouse. Okay.
Right. Because in a galaxy where faster-than-light travel requires vessels to plunge into this nightmare dimension, his psychic light is the only thing that allows navigators to steer human ships.
Ah, so without him, they're flying blind.
Worse than blind. Without him, the Empire cannot communicate, it cannot trade, and it cannot deploy military forces. Everything stops.
So he's the literal linchpin of their entire infrastructure.
Exactly. But there's a cost. To keep this lighthouse burning, the Imperium sacrifices 1,000 human psychers to the Golden Throne every single day.
Wait, really? 1,000 a day?
Every single day.
It's a literal blood sacrifice just to keep the lights on. That completely recontextualizes the decay for me.
It's brutal, but necessary for their survival.
Imagine a colossal, rotting wooden ship that has been slowly, agonizingly sinking for a century. The wood is waterlogged, the sails are torn, the crew is exhausted, but everyone is used to the sinking.
They expect it.
Right. They've built their entire lives, an entire zealous religious bureaucracy around the fact that the ship is sinking. The daily sacrifices, the endless wars, the total suppression of free thought. These are the buckets they use to endlessly bail water just to keep the deck barely above the waves.
That's a perfect analogy. It's a desperate, continuous effort to maintain a decaying equilibrium.
Just bailing water forever.
Exactly. But the text tells us that this 10,000-year era is over. The galaxy is no longer slowly rotting. It is actively shattering.
The ship didn't just sink a little lower.
No, the keel violently broke. The reality they knew is gone.
And when a massive structure like that finally snaps, it doesn't happen evenly. You need a stress point, right? An impact.
You need a catalyst.
Yeah. And the notes point us to a very specific geographical linchpin that caused this galactic mirror to shatter. A planet called Cadia.
Right, Cadia. It was the ultimate choke point. In strategic terms, if you have a massive threat and they have a primary route into your territory, you fortify that route.
That's just basic military strategy.
Exactly. And the text details that Cadia is positioned at the mouth of an anomaly called the Eye of Terror.
Just the name alone tells you you do not want to buy real estate there. I mean, the Eye of Terror.
Yeah, the property values are terrible.
We should probably clarify what the Eye of Terror actually is, because the geography here seems crucial.
It is absolutely central to the conflict.
Because this isn't like a wormhole or a black hole, right?
Yeah.
The notes say it is a permanent bleeding wound in the fabric of reality where the physical universe overlaps with something called the warp.
Yes. And the warp is arguably the most important foundational concept in this entire lore.
Okay, unpack that for us.
So it is a parallel dimension composed entirely of raw psychic energy and emotion. It is where the horrors of this universe, the chaos gods and their demonic legions reside.
So it's basically a dimension of pure nightmares.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And the Eye of Terror is the largest stable gateway for those forces to spill over into the physical galaxy.
And Cadia was parked right at the exit door.
Right at the mouth of the anomaly.
The source material describes Cadia as a fortress world, and it makes a point to say it's not a world with a fortress on it, the world is the fortress.
The entire planetary crust.
Yeah, the entire crust was a network of trenches, bunkers, and overlapping artillery batteries.
It represents a level of societal mobilization that is almost impossible to comprehend. The culture was completely stripped of anything that did not serve the martial goal of holding the line.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. It's not just the concrete and the planetary defense lasers. The text states, and this is a direct quote, "Every single Cadian was born a soldier."
Which is a chilling concept.
It is. You aren't born a citizen who might be drafted later if things get bad. Your birth certificate is literally a conscription notice.
Right, from day one.
A child on Cadia learns to field strip a laser rifle before they learn to read. By the time they're teenagers, they have already fought in live-fire defensive campaigns.
And that extreme environment creates the Imperium's finest, most disciplined guard regiments. They had to be.
Because of where they lived.
Exactly. They spent 10,000 years staring up into a sky that was dominated by a swirling purple storm of literal madness, knowing they were the only thing standing between that madness and the rest of humanity.
But, okay, if they were that good, if they had 10,000 years to dig in, fortify, and breed the perfect soldiers, how does a supposedly unbreachable fortress actually fall?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. The notes say the year was 999.M41, so the very end of the 41st millennium when Cadia broke. Did the Chaos Legions just finally bring enough troops to overwhelm the trenches?
Well, the mechanics of the defeat are what make this a paradigm shift, rather than just a lost battle.
Okay, how so?
The Chaos Forces, led by a warlord named Abaddon the Despoiler, launched what was called the 13th Black Crusade. And initially, the Cadians actually held.
They held the line.
They did. The ground war was brutal, a meat grinder of unprecedented scale, but the planetary defenses were doing exactly what they were designed to do.
Because it's a fortress world.
Exactly. So Abaddon realized he could not take Cadia in a conventional ground war.
So he changed the physics of the situation.
In the most devastating way possible, yes. Abaddon possessed a massive, ancient alien space station known as a Blackstone Fortress.
Oh yeah, space station.
A moon-sized space station. When his ground invasion stalled, he deliberately disabled the shields and engines of this colossal structure and physically crashed it into the planet.
Oh my God. He weaponized a space station as a kinetic kill vehicle.
Yes.
If you can't beat the fortress, you just drop a moon on it. The sheer scale of that spite is staggering.
It's an apocalyptic event.
So the planetary crust shatters, the mantle is breached, and Cadia physically breaks apart. But the notes are very specific that this wasn't just a military defeat or a loss of heavy
Oh,
infantry.
no, it goes much deeper than that.
Yeah, the text explicitly tells us that Cadia's destruction was a cosmic catastrophe. Why cosmic?
Because Cadia was hiding a secret that made it far more than just a military base. The physical planet housed ancient alien monoliths called pylons.
Pylons, okay.
These structures predated humanity, and they were actively projecting a stabilizing field that calmed the warp.
Oh, I see.
They were the physical mechanism holding back the Eye of Terror, keeping the anomaly from expanding.
Okay, so think of the warp as a highly pressurized ocean of unreality. Cadia wasn't just a heavily armed island in that ocean.
Right.
The pylons made Cadia the final desperate bolt holding together a pressurized submarine at the bottom of the Mariana Trench.
That is a perfect structural analogy.
Right, so the submarine is real space, and the crushing water outside is the madness of the warp.
Yes. So when Abaddon crashed the Blackstone fortress into the planet, he didn't just kill the Cadian regiments. He shattered the pylons.
He destroyed the bolt.
He destroyed the bolt.
And the Mariana Trench of madness instantly floods the sub. The text says, with that linchpin shattered, the warp erupts. It creates something called the Great Rift, or the Cicatrix Maledictum.
Right. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, we see exactly why the rule book of this universe was rewritten overnight.
The fracture.
Exactly. The destruction of the pylons caused a catastrophic tear in reality that physically split the entire galaxy in half.
Split the whole galaxy.
The warp bled into real space on a galactic scale.
So the submarine has completely ruptured. So what does this all mean for the daily operations of the Imperium? I mean, how do you run a million-world empire when reality itself is torn open down the middle?
Well, you don't. The infrastructure of the empire completely
It's
collapses.
just overnight.
Overnight. Remember the Emperor's psychic lighthouse, the Astronomicon?
Right, the thing that lets them navigate and communicate.
Exactly. The opening of the Great Rift created such a massive shockwave of psychic static that the light was snuffed out for a period.
Wait, the lighthouse went dark.
Completely dark.
Which means no faster than light travel and no astropathic communication. It would be like trying to fight a coordinated global world war today, and suddenly someone deletes the internet, takes down every satellite, and evaporates all oceanic shipping lines simultaneously.
That's exactly what it felt like. You were suddenly brutally isolated.
Just cut off from everything.
Yeah, right. You could have two heavily populated planets that used to trade with each other daily, and now there is a literal storm of demons separating them. You have no idea if the central government even exists anymore.
Because nobody can talk to anybody.
And the isolation is compounded by the bizarre physics of the warp. Because it is a dimension of pure energy and emotion, time does not flow linearly within it.
Oh, right, the temporal fracturing. The source text gives us these incredible mind-bending examples of time dilation caused by the Great Rift.
It really bends your understanding of logistics.
So a planet on one side of the rift might experience a few days of terrifying darkness before the stars come back, but a neighboring system, caught in a different eddy of the warp storm, might experience hundreds of years of isolation.
Exactly.
Imagine sending out a distress call for reinforcements. The cavalry receives it and jumps through hyperspace, arriving what they think is the very next day. But when they drop out of warp, the people who sent the signal have been dead for 5 centuries.
It shatters any illusion of centralized command. The physical barrier keeping chaos out of reality has dissolved. You no longer have a front line against the enemy.
The front line is everywhere.
The front line is your own atmosphere. The front line is your own mind. The shattered pieces of the mirror we discussed earlier are now separated by a gaping wound in reality itself.
It's just utter chaos.
For 10 millennia, humanity believed that as long as Cadia stood, the core of the Imperium was safe. Now, the absolute rock bottom of despair has been reached.
But just as the Mariana Trench completely floods the sub, the Imperium experiences an impossible reaction to the catastrophe. The notes outline this massive tonal whiplash, moving from the darkest despair to the theme of desperate hope.
A very fragile hope, but hope nonetheless.
Right, because for 10,000 years, the Primarchs were dead, missing, or corrupted.
Now, we need to define exactly what a Primarch is to really understand the weight of this moment.
Good idea.
They are not simply skilled generals or political leaders. They are genetically engineered demigods. They are the legendary, mythological sons of the emperor himself.
So they are literal myths to the people currently alive.
Exactly. They were the architects of the original empire 10,000 years ago.
They are figures of pure myth to the people of the 41st millennium, because in their absence, the empire has been run by what the text calls mortal high lords, petty bureaucrats, and corrupt nobles.
The people who oversaw the decay.
Right. It's endless red tape, religious fanaticism, and political backstabbing while the ship slowly sinks. But then, in the face of absolute galactic annihilation, one of these ancient demigods, a Primarch named Robert Guilliman, is resurrected.
And the mechanism of his resurrection is just as paradigm-shifting as the fall of Cadia.
How so?
Well, Guilliman had been held in stasis, suffering from a fatal wound for 10,000 years. His revival wasn't a miracle of the Imperium's stagnant science. It required an unprecedented alliance.
An alliance with who?
An ancient cybernetic genius named Belisarius Cawl had to ally with a faction of an alien species, the Ildari, specifically a priestess named Yvraine. They had to work together to pull Guilliman back from the brink of death.
Wait, alien magic? Which is pure heresy to the rigid xenophobic bureaucracy of the Imperium.
Absolutely, the ultimate heresy.
I mean, they've spent millennia preaching that all aliens must be purged, and their literal founding father is brought back to life by alien magic and forbidden technology. The irony is staggering.
It forces the Imperium to accept something they fundamentally hate.
But my favorite part of these notes is what Guilliman actually does upon his return. I mean, he wakes up to a torn reality, demonic invasions, the absolute end of all things, and what is his immediate focus? Reforming the bureaucracy.
It seems almost absurd on the surface, right?
Totally absurd.
But functionally, it is incredibly pragmatic.
Oh, it's brilliant. We have a 10-foot-tall, genetically perfect demigod trying to do administrative paperwork during an apocalypse.
Because he understands logistics.
Exactly. He looks at this sprawling, corrupt government and realizes that a sword won't fix a broken supply chain.
Right, you can't stab a food shortage.
Right. So he starts auditing planetary governors, streamlining logistics, and aggressively firing or, well, executing corrupt officials.
He brings order to the chaos.
But wait, it gets more complex because the text notes that Guilliman isn't the only myth to return. A second Primarch, Lionel Johnson of the Dark Angels, recently reemerged from the darkness.
And his approach is the polar opposite of Guilliman's.
The total opposite.
The Lion wakes up, surveys the fractured galaxy, and essentially bypasses the administration entirely. He focuses on the immediate, visceral threat.
He's out there swinging a sword at nightmares.
Exactly.
So Guilliman is at a desk with an Excel spreadsheet trying to optimize bolt round production for 1,000,000 worlds, and the Lion is teleporting into demonic strongholds to hunt monsters.
It is such a stark contrast in leadership styles.
It really is.
Yeah.
But putting ourselves in their shoes, how profoundly alienating must it be for these two beings?
It has to be a nightmare for them.
Imagine being the architect of a grand, secular, enlightened civilization, going to sleep and waking up 10,000 years later to find your descendants have turned you and your father into gods.
And they've draped everything in skulls and incense.
Yes. And they actively punish scientific inquiry.
The psychological toll on Guilliman and the Lion must be staggering. They are strangers in a dark reflection of the house they built.
That dark reflection, yeah.
The Imperium they lead now is built on superstition and fear, which are the very things they fought to eradicate in their youth.
You wake up, look at the grand tapestry you wove, and it's been painted over with blood and religious dogma.
It's tragic, really.
Yet their duality gives the Imperium its first real chance at survival in millennia. Guilliman provides the systemic bureaucratic spine, while the Lion provides the direct martial spearhead.
They complement each other perfectly.
Furthermore, the text mentions that despite the shockwave of the Great Rift, the Emperor's psychic light on the Golden Throne is flickering, but it has not gone out.
The lighthouse is damaged, but it is attempting to relight. That provides a sliver of desperate hope.
The board is shattered. They are trying to play a grand strategic game of chess, but the board is broken into 100 jagged pieces, half the squares are submerged in the warp, and the communication lines between the pieces are constantly dropping.
That's a logistical nightmare.
Which pushes us into the final and honestly most chilling section of our deep dive, the ticking clock.
This is where things get truly bleak.
Yeah, because the return of the Primarchs brings competent leadership, but the source text takes a very dark pivot, revealing that this hope is fundamentally flawed.
It notes that this feeling of resurgence might be a cruel illusion.
A cruel illusion. I mean, if Gilliman is fixing the bureaucracy and the lion is slaying the monsters, why isn't that enough? What is happening in the dark spaces they can't reach?
Well, the text lays out compounding threats that go far beyond the Great Rift.
Right. It says the universe itself is seemingly waking up to destroy them, and it specifically highlights two massive forces, the Tyranids and the Necrons.
We have to analyze exactly what these threats represent to understand the scale of the doom here. Let's look at the Tyranids first.
Okay.
The text notes they are devouring everything in their path. The Tyranids are not a political enemy.
They're not trying to conquer territory.
No, they are an extragalactic biological swarm. They do not want territory. They do not want to negotiate. They simply want to consume all biological matter.
They are a cosmic locust swarm.
Precisely.
And what makes them so terrifying in the context of the Great Rift is how they interact with the warp. The notes mention they project something called the shadow in the warp.
Which is a terrifying concept.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the Tyranid hive mind is so vast, its psychic presence actually smothers the warp. So if a planet is attacked by Tyranids, the astropaths can't even send out a psychic distress call.
The Tyranid swarm literally blocks the signal.
You are cut off, and then you are eaten.
It's an external, all-consuming pressure. And then we have the Necrons, which the text says are awakening in force.
So if the Tyranids are the terror from outside,
The Necrons are the terror from within. The Necrons are an ancient race of soulless metallic androids who ruled the galaxy millions of years before humanity even existed.
millions of years.
Yes, they went into a deep hibernation inside highly advanced tomb worlds.
And the terrifying part is, humanity has unknowingly built cities and colonies right on top of these dormant tomb worlds.
Exactly.
Imagine you've spent 10,000 years fortifying your planet against threats from the stars, only to realize the ground beneath your feet is hollow, and millions of unkillable, self-repairing Terminators are slowly waking up in the basement.
And the sheer technological disparity is horrifying.
How far apart are they?
Well, the Imperium fights with mass-produced projectile weapons and lasers. The Necrons wield weapons that break down matter at a molecular level and manipulate the fundamental laws of thermodynamics.
So they're basically fighting gods of flashlights.
It's the ultimate nightmare scenario.
You have the Great Rift, tearing reality apart from the inside, spewing out demons. You have ancient, soulless machines waking up beneath your feet. And you have an endless biological swarm eating its way into the galaxy from the
The
outside.
pressure is coming from every possible direction.
The harsh reality laid out in the notes is blunt. The Imperium is fighting a war on every single front, and it is actively losing.
This brings us to the crux of the modern setting.
Right.
The gathering storm mentioned in the source material is not a crisis to be overcome. The text explicitly states it is the beginning of the end.
The powder keg has a burning fuse.
Yes.
Usually when legendary heroes return to a narrative, victory is all but guaranteed. You think of classic mythology, the hero shows up, the music swells, and you know the forces of darkness are going to be pushed back.
The day is safe.
Right. But here, the heroes return, they analyze the broken board, they look at the Tyranids, the Necrons, and the Great Rift, and the text gives us this emotional gut punch. Gilliman and the Lion both know the math.
They know they can't win.
They know the Imperium cannot win this war, and they are deeply, secretly terrified.
This raises an important question regarding the psychology of the setting.
Right. If the demigods themselves are terrified, and they know they are mathematically losing on every front, what does that do to the psyche of the everyday person?
It's devastating.
If the ultimate heroes look at the villain and realize they are outmatched, what are you, the average soldier in the trench, supposed to do?
You experience a profound shift from structural stability to absolute existential dread.
Because the stalemate is broken.
Exactly. For 10,000 years, the everyday person believed that endurance was the goal. The stalemate was terrible, brutal, and dogmatic, but it was a stable system. As long as you held the line, humanity survived.
You could rely on the rot, the ship was sinking, but you knew exactly how fast the water was rising.
Exactly. But now the system is fundamentally broken. They are fighting a war where the best possible strategic outcome isn't victory, it's just buying a few more seconds on the clock.
Just a few more seconds.
You are throwing millions of lives into a meat grinder, not to push the enemy back, but just to stall the Tyranids for a week, to delay the Necron awakening on a single world, to hold back the bleeding edge of the Great Rift by a fraction of a moment.
It recontextualizes the entire universe. That is such a powerful phrase from the text. The grim darkness of the far future is no longer just a static setting. It is an active countdown.
The fuse is burning.
When we started this deep dive, we talked about examining how massive systems fail. We look at corporate bankruptcies or historical collapses and try to find the clean, singular reason, the bad investment, the lost battle.
We want to diagnose the fracture cleanly so we can understand it.
But what we've explored today is a model of total systemic collapse. The fracture isn't a single broken bone. The entire skeleton has shattered.
There's nothing left to hold it together.
We traced this massive paradigm shift from a 10,000-year decaying stalemate, a society built entirely on the blind faith of holding the line.
We examined the tragic fall of Cadia, an entire culture bred for war. And we learned that when a system relies on a single point of failure, like the alien pylons holding back the warp, its collapse doesn't just cause a localized leak. It rewrites the physical laws of your reality.
We looked at the physical tearing of that reality with the Great Rift, the utter logistical nightmare of a fractured galaxy where communication and travel are severed by time-distorting storms of madness.
And finally, we explored the terrifying reality of the compounding threats.
The Tyranids and the Necrons.
The Tyranid swarms blocking communication, the Necrons waking from beneath the earth, and the chilling realization that even resurrected demigods, Gilliman reforming the bureaucracy, the lion fighting the nightmares can't stop a burning fuse.
They aren't there to win a war.
No, they're merely managing an apocalypse.
Which leaves us with a final, lingering thought tailored directly for you to mull over as you think about the nature of collapsing systems.
The source material makes it abundantly clear that this universe is now a countdown. If the Emperor's psychic lighthouse is damaged, and the greatest returning heroes are secretly terrified that their efforts are a cruel illusion, does knowing the fuse is burning make the fight more heroic or entirely pointless?
That's the real question.
When the guardians of a universe realize they are no longer preventing an apocalypse, but simply managing its timeline, what is it that keeps them fighting in the dark?
That is a profound question to take with you. When the mirror shatters, do you try to tape the pieces back together knowing it will never hold your reflection again? Or do you pick up a jagged shard and fight until the clock runs out? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It's been an incredible journey through a truly fractured galaxy. We'll see you next time.